The moon cast silver light over the forest clearing, where silence pressed heavy against the trees. Only the crackle of distant fires and the soft rustle of leaves betrayed movement. In that stillness a figure lingered, broad-shouldered, weary, his clothes torn from travel. His eyes, though shadowed by exhaustion, held a strange gentleness as they fixed upon her. She was the chief's daughter, graceful in posture, her long hair braided with beads that shimmered faintly under moonlight. The two spoke in hushed tones, voices barely touching the night, as if even the air would betray their secret meeting. She listened intently, her breath quick and heart unsettled. Outsiders were forbidden here, yet something in his words reached beyond the barrier of law. He told her of rivers that ran through mountains, of storms survived, of a path that had led him, unwilling, to this tribe's territory. His voice was cracked but steady, carrying loneliness and a quiet strength. Her eyes softened, though her hands trembled at her sides. The world around them was dangerous, unforgiving, yet here was someone more wounded than wild. Against reason, she let her guard down, letting compassion grow where fear had first been. From the shadows, unseen eyes caught the faintest glimpse of the forbidden exchange. Warriors hidden among the trees stiffened, their faces hardening at what they saw. A stranger, daring to stand before their chief's daughter, was sin itself. Whispers shot through the camp like sparks carried by wind. Soon, more gathered, suspicion burning into anger. Every stolen word between them became fuel for a growing fire. The tribe was not known for mercy. To see their sacred bloodline touched by an outsider was an insult demanding vengeance. And so the night, once quiet, carried the promise of violence. As dawn approached, the stillness shattered. Drums rolled through the valley like thunder, summoning every soul to the council ground. Smoke lifted from fires stoked high, and the scent of pine mixed with ash and fear. The man was seized, bound by leather straps biting into his wrists. Villagers shouted curses, spitting upon the ground as he was dragged forward. Dust rose under bare feet, his head held low but his back unbroken. Children peered from behind their mothers' skirts, while warriors, tall and fierce, stood in a circle of judgment. The stranger's fate was no longer his own. The chief emerged, broad-chested and draped in furs, his face carved by years of power. His eyes blazed like fire as he studied the man thrown before him. Silence fell heavy, only the crackle of torches breaking it. With a voice that carried the weight of thunder, he demanded, "Who dares disturb the sanctity of my people?" None spoke, for all eyes were fixed on the stranger. His wrists bled against the bonds, yet his gaze remained steady. The chief's glare sharpened. "You dare touch what is sacred?" The words cut through the air, condemning before judgment was even passed. Torches lit the man's rugged face, revealing scars across his jaw, etched from survival rather than battle pride. He raised his head, and in that moment, his silence became defiance. The people expected him to beg, to plead for mercy, but no words came. The chief's daughter stood at the edge of the circle, her breath shallow, hands clasped tightly, as if to stop herself from crying out. Fear clawed her throat. She knew the punishment for such transgression, exile at best, death at worst. And still, the stranger's calm unsettled them, as though he carried truth deeper than fear. The crowd roared with rage, demanding blood. Women shouted curses, men raised spears, their eyes sharp with fury. To them, this was a betrayal of tradition, of honor. The drums beat harder, shaking the ground with each strike. Yet as the man's stoic silence continued, unease rippled through the gathering. Could it be defiance, or was it something else, an innocence he would not abandon? The daughter's heart raced as she stepped forward slightly, torn between her people and the foreign soul who had spoken to her beneath the stars. Her eyes, glassy with unshed tears, betrayed a truth none wished to see. The chief, towering and unyielding, raised his hand, and silence fell like a blade. "This man will answer with his life," he declared, the finality ringing through the clearing. Gasps echoed among the crowd, though many nodded with grim satisfaction. The daughter's breath caught, her chest tight with dread. She wanted to scream, to speak, but her tongue froze beneath the weight of her father's authority. The stranger, however, lifted his chin higher, unbroken even as his death sentence hung in the air. His eyes locked with hers, and in them she saw neither fear nor regret, only dignity. As the morning sun pushed above the horizon, its golden rays spilled across the tribe's circle. The firelight dulled beneath its brilliance, and the drums slowed, their thunder replaced by the soft whisper of wind. For a fleeting moment, the chaos faded, leaving only silence and the rhythm of hearts. The stranger stood tall though bound, his shadow stretching long across the dust. The daughter felt tears burn her cheeks, her body trembling at the sight. Fate had been sealed before her eyes, not by crime, but by courage. And she knew deep inside destiny had only just begun. The council fire burned high, its flames licking at the dawn sky. Warriors gathered in a tight circle, their voices sharp with anger, their spears glinting like rows of teeth. Old women whispered prayers, fearful of curses that might fall if tradition were broken. The stranger stood in the middle, wrists still bound, though he bore the weight of many eyes with an unbroken gaze. At his side, the chief's daughter stepped forward, her slender form trembling, yet her resolve shone brighter than the torches. Against fear and against custom, she prepared to raise her voice for truth. The murmurs swelled like waves crashing on rocks. Men demanded swift judgment. Women hissed that honor had been tainted. Children clung to their mothers' skirts in confusion. Yet when the chief's daughter lifted her chin, the circle quieted, compelled by her defiance. Her braids swayed across her shoulder as she spoke, her voice fragile at first, but steady with each word. "He is no thief of honor," she cried, her eyes sweeping across the crowd. "He saved me." Gasps surged like wildfire, crackling through the people, leaving silence in their wake. Few dared breathe, waiting for her next words. Her gaze turned to her father, unwavering. She spoke of the night she had wandered beyond the fires, into the darkness where the forest breathed danger. There she had been cornered by a wild beast, its eyes glowing, its growl rising. Fear had paralyzed her, until this stranger, worn and weary, had leapt between them. He had fought with nothing but a broken blade and his bare hands, bearing wounds that marked his body still. She told of his sacrifice, how he had kept his silence to protect her dignity, never once boasting of what he had done. The tribe listened, torn between disbelief and awe. Whispers fluttered like startled birds. Could this stranger truly have risked his life for their daughter? Could honor lie in silence rather than in pride? The old shaman squinted at the man, tracing the scars across his arms, evidence that matched her tale. Warriors shifted uneasily, their anger softening with uncertainty. Some lowered their spears, though others clung stubbornly to rage. Tradition had never been defied, yet truth had been spoken, and truth carried a weight no spear could pierce. All eyes turned to the chief, whose silence thundered louder than drums. The chief's face was stone, carved by years of command, yet behind his eyes churned the storm of a father and a leader. His daughter's trembling form stood before him, her plea both fragile and unyielding. He studied the stranger, noting the stillness in his stance, the absence of fear in his eyes. Pride stirred within him, not for the man, but for the daughter who dared raise her voice. "You speak of his courage," the chief said, voice deep as earth. "But what of his place? He is not of our blood." The circle held its breath, waiting. The daughter's reply rang clear, her voice breaking yet strong. "Blood alone does not make kin. Courage does. Loyalty does." She looked at the man, then back to her people. "Would you cast away a protector for the sake of pride? He sought no reward, no claim upon me. He carried silence when he could have spoken. Is this not honor?" Her words cracked through the still air, leaving the tribe divided. The old warriors frowned, bound to tradition, but the younger ones, those who longed for a future less rigid, shifted, stirred by the possibility of change. The drums slowed, replaced by the hiss of the fire and the restless stir of the crowd. The shaman lifted her staff, nodding slowly. "Truth is in the scars. she murmured, pointing toward the stranger. The spirits mark those who walk with courage. His silence was not shame, it was sacrifice. Murmurs rippled through the circle, softening the cries for blood. Even the most hardened warriors lowered their eyes, recalling the weight of the girl's testimony. The stranger himself remained silent, bound by ropes but unbroken, his dignity louder than any plea. His silence, once condemned, had become his strength. The chief paced before the fire, every step echoing like judgment. His people waited, their fates tied to his decision. His daughter's eyes pleaded, though no tears fell, only strength. Finally he turned, raising his hand. The crowd stilled. "Then he shall stay," the chief declared, voice thunder rolling across the clearing. Not as an intruder, but as kin. The words struck like lightning. Shock rippled through the tribe, followed by uncertain murmurs. The daughter gasped, her heart soaring. The stranger, for the first time, allowed his shoulders to ease, the faintest flicker of relief breaking his stoic silence. Warriors stepped forward, their knives flashing, not to harm him, but to cut away the ropes that bound his wrists. The leather straps fell into the dust, leaving red marks across his skin. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath as he flexed his freed hands, then looked toward the chief with quiet respect. He did not bow nor boast, but simply stood, as if to say freedom itself was enough. The daughter moved toward him, her eyes shining, her courage now mirrored in his calm strength. Around them the fire roared, sealing a bond unspoken. At sunrise, golden light spilled over the camp, painting the people in warmth. The stranger stood no longer as a prisoner, but as one accepted. Children peered curiously at him, elders nodded with grudging respect, and warriors studied him with wary admiration. The daughter smiled softly, her heart no longer weighed with fear. A new destiny had begun, not just for the man who was once an outsider, but for the tribe that had dared to listen to truth. Where once there was division, now there stood a fragile bridge of trust, built on courage, sacrifice, and newfound kinship.